Hello and welcome to Sports Stars Unplugged Powered by PainPod. I'm your host, Shelley Horton, and with me today is NRLW Legend Nita Maynard. Now, you don't like Legend, do you?
I don't. I guess it just highlights my age. And then, once you get past that 25-year-old stage, you kind of, stop openly saying how old you are. So
you're going to hide it. Yeah. Let my scores, my goals, my kicks, determine my age.
For sure.
I'm so sporty, as you can tell. All right. Now, let's start at the very beginning. You're a Kiwi. Yes. What drew you to come over to Australia?
I actually was in university. It was in 2011. My first year out of high school, I went to university up in Auckland. So I'm from a small place in New Zealand on the east coast called Gisborne. And the first time I had moved away, I went up to Auckland to attend university. Loved life, spent all my money. I came around to the end of the year and I just thought my mum had already lived over in Sydney. I was like, I'll go over and I'll work during the school holidays or the uni break and then I'll head back over. So once I came over, I loved it so much. I loved the weather. I just loved the vibe. I just really liked being in Sydney at that time and I still am. So
yeah,
I just never left.
We couldn't get rid of you.
No.
It's stuck with you.
Actually, those one-way tickets that never left.
Yeah, love it. So let's talk about your sporting career because it hasn't been a straight line, has it?
No. So coming out of high school, I've always played rugby union. Obviously, growing up in New Zealand, that's the national sport and that's huge back in New Zealand. So I played that all the way growing up. But the reason why I played rugby union is I had an older sister and I always looked up to her and I always used to think, she can do it, I can do it better. So she was actually really good when we were going through high school and through primary. So I just thought, I'll take it up and I just fell in love with the game. So my dad only has girls, so he was really passionate about rugby union and just sport in general. So we were really brought up in a real sporty household. Like I probably played every sport under the sun, from netball, cricket, you done swimming, you done nippers, you done basketball and rugby as well.
I don't think you'd be a very good basketballer.
I know.
I'm a little bit short for that.
I'm a really good netball player, but I'm just a little bit vertically challenged.
Yes. You were very good at here if you need.
So yeah, I actually went all the way through to like a rep level, national rep level for netball, but I was just obviously too short. I love the game, but
the game didn't love you.
It didn't.
No. So luckily,
Tory.
luckily there were other games that did love you. So tell me how you went from union to rugby league.
Yeah, so I actually, during that period when I had moved over, I just Googled the closest rugby union club and I just kind of sent out a message and was like, I'd love to play for you. And then I ended up at Parramatta Two Blues in Western Sydney and obviously in the Granville area, Parramatta area. And then I played my first year there and I must have been a little bit talented or whatnot, whatever you want to call it. I had managed to make the Sydney team that played like the 15-a-side, and then later that year I'd been invited to a few Australian Sevens camps. So I played a lot of union and went to a few camps when I first moved over, and didn't last too long for me, unfortunately, because I fell pregnant pretty much the first full year that I spent here in Australia.
Well,
so
that kind of put a pause on things.
Yeah, it did. It put a lot of pause in a lot of things, actually. So definitely don't regret it. I think it's been the best journey having my daughter along to experience all my sporting career and just highlights in general. Like she's a huge highlight, but for me, having to have your daughter along for the ride, she's pretty much my little best friend that just comes around everywhere. Everybody recognises her when we're at any sporting events. They ask how she's doing and how old she is. And
she's 10 now.
Yeah, she's 10. Yeah. So everyone's surprised to see. Like, I think for a lot of people who have known me since I've initially moved over, it's just like, has 10 years gone? Has that really happened? Are we really that old?
Yeah, so she's kind of keeping track of, the older she gets, then we're like, oh.
Yeah, so
now,
legends.
I've got to say, you tend to move around when it comes to rugby league. Tell me about the teams you've played for.
So I've played for the Sydney Roosters, the Parramatta Eels. Last season I was at Brisbane Broncos. And then currently I'm playing for the Newcastle Knights.
Now, what's the advantage or the positives about moving around that much?
I don't think I actually planned on moving around so much as it kind of happened. There was just opportunity. So I'd spent 3 years with the Sydney Roosters. I love the Sydney Roosters. Like, they gave me my first opportunity in rugby league. So it actually just came about as the opportunity. So when the expansion came about in 2021, Parramatta Eels were one of the teams that were coming into the competition, and they just, being a part of the inaugural squad was really amazing to me. I had a lot of really close friends, and I knew that they were putting together a really great squad. So that was probably the biggest reason why I wanted to go play for the Parramatta Eels. At the end of the season, I obviously went to the Brisbane Broncos, and for me, the Brisbane Broncos, they were the epitome of success in women's rugby league. So they'd won 3 back-to-back NRLW titles, so premierships. So,
and you're like, I'll have a piece of that.
Yeah. So, there's always been great things, and I think the older I've gotten, and wanting to continue to improve, I think being around some of the best players. So at that time, last year, like, you had Ali Brigginshaw, you had Taryn Aiken, Amber Paris-Hall, you had all these really high-profile players that I've never actually played with. I all got an opportunity. So I obviously represent New Zealand and played for the Kiwi Ferns, so I was always on the opposite end of playing with those players. So an opportunity to come up and play with the likes of those players, in particular Ali Brigginshaw. I'm sure that she's going to go down as the greatest of all time at one stage. It was just a great opportunity for myself to be exposed to a player like that and learn things on the way, because the longer that you're in the game, there's always improvements to be made, but they tend to get smaller and you tend to have to look outside the box. So that was a huge reason for me wanting to go to the Brisbane Broncos.
And then Newcastle?
Yes, and then Newcastle came along. So Newcastle came along. Actually, I had a conversation with the head coach, Ron Griffith, and he's just such a great person, an amazing person. They have a real big focus on, like, the holistic well-being of the player, and that was really appealing for me, as well as being able to stay in Sydney and be a part of my family. Last year, I spent, I think, 5 months out of the year away from my family. So
that's tough. One
big thing for me this year was not only continuing to play and do what I want to do, but also being a part of my daughter's and my partner's life. I have a fiance back home as well, so it was really important for me to put my family in perspective as well, and juggle both having, like, the career and also having that really good personal life as well.
Now let's talk about work-life balance, because it's pretty hard to do when you're traveling so much. Do you bring them along? What do you do? And what do you do to separate yourself away from league?
Yes, so most times, and like, we obviously have our calendar set out. So as soon as the calendar's set out, we obviously had the opportunity. We had a trial on the weekend, and that's the first week. Was the first week of the school holidays down in New South Wales. So from Monday to Wednesday, I had London up there with training with me, and she loves it. She loves being around the girl. She loves feeling important. She loves thinking that she's just an absolute superstar. So for me to have her around, it's just really comforting for them to be able to experience the environment that I spend so much time away from them in, and for them to know that that I'm in a comfortable space, and then I'm well looked after, but also knowing that it is a family environment up in Newcastle, that they are very much inviting to all families and of everything, really. And later that weekend, it was my birthday weekend, actually. We won't
mention the number.
Definitely won't be mentioning that. Just know it's above 25. Yeah. Although that's as far as we'll go.
Legend age. Yeah. Yeah.
But so my partner and I, we spent a little weekend away up in Newcastle. So yeah, it's been really great in terms of myself, like, being able to balance out the work-life balance, and in particular for me, home life. Home life is really important this season, like this year.
So how did you become a PainPod ambassador?
It's funny. We actually just went online. I think it was my partner who was looking at some of the like the PainPod tools, and we bought it first, and then he was reading along in the email once we think, he was like, oh my gosh, look, they've included that there's an opportunity for an ambassador role. And so, lo and behold, we sent her an email. Sandy got back to me with a great call. I think we were playing a bit of a phone tag for a little bit there. Like, I think it took us a full week to actually be able to have the conversation about what the role entailed. So Mine's pretty easy. Like, we really enjoyed the product. We had great reviews and saw the opportunity to be an ambassador. And that's exactly what we did. We took up the opportunity and put ourselves out there.
So authentic that you actually used the product before it came along. You came along to be ambassador.
Yeah, I think the great thing about using the product is that myself as an athlete, I think it was I had maybe calf or quad issues. So I know that I was a little bit niggly with the back-to-back season, so that's why we actually bought it initially. And then, like, once we started using it, I'm not the only one. Like, I might be an athlete and use it. My partner, he trains for fun and stuff. He loves using it. And then also my father-in-law really likes using it as well. So for me, it kind of covered all bases in terms of, like, how universal it can be for anything. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to do anything strenuous or anything.
I've got a friend who used it during childbirth.
Yeah.
How's that?
Funny enough, my sister-in-law uses it during a menstrual cycle for lower back pain.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing for lower back pain. And with me traveling up to Newcastle a few times a week, like any time that I start to feel like it's coming on, I just put on my lower back for like a half an hour, and then,
because that's something that female athletes have to deal with that blokes don't.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about a monthly cycle or anything like that. So something like PainPod, fantastic because it's drug-free and gives you relief.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as well as being a legend, you actually represent the players as part of the union. Tell me a little bit about how you work with them.
Yes. So I'm a women's operation manager. Basically, I'm the link between the players and our union, and what I do is I distribute information, gather feedback from the players themselves, and that helps direct our strategies in terms of anything that we're going towards. At the moment, actually, there's a lot going on with the current CBA negotiations. So there's been a lot of it's been a really busy over the last few weeks in terms of work and how we've been able to implement that. And I think it just shows the importance of having this connection and being this role. Like, I'm still a current player, so I still have a fair idea and have a lot of connections with players. So it's been a lot easier for me to close that gap, I guess, because I'm still part of the game as a player, but also trying to look after myself, preceding my playing opportunities.
So it's kind of like you have to wear different hats with the different roles.
Yeah, 100%. And it is a balancing act, and you don't want to overstep your mark in certain situations. But for me, I really find that I'm just so passionate about it. I still love the game. I always thought about it for the last few years about wanting to still be involved with it, part of the club level. It just so happens that I've managed to be in a position that I am with the union and still work really strongly alongside a lot of players. So it gives me a lot of, I'd say, satisfaction in terms of sort of being a part of.
Because it's also, you need to think about what's next.
Yes.
And so for you, it might be a way of staying within the game without being a professional athlete.
Yes. So for me in particular, again, we won't mention the age barrier.
But this is a touchy subject.
But I'm obviously going to have to get the game up at some stage. And for me, making the most of the opportunities, I think that's the great thing about being an elite athlete, especially in particular a female athlete at this stage, is that it's only growing. So there's so much more opportunities, there's so much more exposure as a female athlete. And I'd be silly not to maximize the opportunity that I have as a player right now, which has led to this role. But again, it still allows me to fulfill like my desire to still be a part of the team. So I've just kind of got managed to get the best of both worlds at the moment.
Now, crystal ball, but 5 years' time, what do you think the Women's League will look like?
I think it's just blowing up. I think we can see from the earlier Origin series that we had this year, we only had a 2-game match, and I know that the public in particular were pushing for that third match because, to finish such a great series on aggregate points is a little bit deflating at some stage, but I think it's going to continue growing. So at this stage, we've got 10 teams. By the end of the term, hopefully we have 12. But minimum wage will be at a point where female athletes can look to try and do this as a full-time job.
But not even just minimum wage, but we want more sponsors to come on board. We want more corporations like PainPod to back female athletes because it's not fair that the blokes, again, get to do it full-time. I think it's time for women to step up and shine in that area. Don't you agree?
Oh, for sure. And like you mentioned, PainPod are already a sponsor of the Gold Coast Titans. So, you know, they don't just talk about it, they lead the way as well. So that's why it's really awesome to be an ambassador for such a company who's really invested in helping the development of female athletes.
Nita, I have just loved chatting to you. You might be afraid to say your age, but I do say you're a legend, no matter what age that is. So that's all that time we have for on Sports Stars Unplugged, powered by PainPod. I'm your host, Shelley Horton, and we'll see you soon.